Always have trouble with this thing, so folks, just I don't think it's going to work. Try a match. Warren, somebody needs to help me with kindling the chalice. I can't get this to work. Here. I did that. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Now I have to get on with my, lost my place here. Sorry. Got too many papers here. Okay. Oh, our opening hymn this morning. This is Jude. Hymn 123, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The offering is the sacrament of the Free Church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all of us who join together. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. You can mail your contribution to our fellowship from the address that's on the screen, the post office box. Our offertory hymn this morning is Just as Long as I Have Breath.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
We're not hearing Marge out there. We're not hearing Marge.
You can't hear me?
Now we can. Yay!
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Shall I introduce Holly to do the responsive reading again? She's going to read the
Yes.
words and I am going to read the responses.
Okay. And it's number 567 if you have a hymnal. I want to be with people who submerge in the task,
Who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along.
who stand in the line and haul in their places,
Who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out.
the work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust.
But the things worth doing well done, have a shape that satisfies, clean and evident.
Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used.
The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. People are just lazy. I think most people want to work. We'll take a moment now for silent reflection on these words. Holly will deliver our message this morning.
Yeah, if you do speaker view, you can see me. There. Okay. When I was in seminary, I was in a degree program that gave me a lot of latitude in designing my program. So I decided to ask two of my professors to engage with me in independent study. The first one I approached was John, an ethics professor, because ethics was my main interest. I proposed that I meet with him 1 hour a week for 1 or 2 credits. He didn't say yes and he didn't say no. He said, "What's in it for me?" And I asked, "What do you want?" It turns out he was interested in expanding his understanding of economics as a key piece of social justice ethics. So John and I wound up doing 2 semesters of a fruitful and rewarding reciprocal tutorial, each of us suggesting and requesting areas where we felt we needed to learn more. The most fun question from him was when he asked me to explain money. The other professor was my advisor, Steve. I had already fulfilled the required 2 semesters of Bible by taking 2 semesters of Old Testament or Hebrew scriptures, as we were taught to call them. But I felt the need to get some New Testament in my program. What did I like about the New Testament? I didn't think Revelation belonged in the Bible, and I wasn't fond of Paul, which left the Gospels. The most interesting part of the Gospels to me was always been the parables, the teaching stories, which were a rich tradition in Judaism. And I knew that Steve taught a class in parables for preachers. I asked if he would, in essence, supervise me as a student teacher of the parables. My class would be back in Clemson, about 8 women, some Christian, some UU, and we would call it Wine and Parables for obvious reasons. We would meet late every Friday afternoon to discuss the parable for the week. Like his ethics colleague, Steve didn't say yes and he didn't say no. He said, "What's in it for me?" And I responded the same way. I said, "What do you want?" He wanted contemporary examples of the parables in literature and film and music and other places that he could use for his class. So I took that proposal back to my friends and they agreed. It was an amazingly rich experience. The mysterious Steve was always in the background in our weekly discussion. Each week, he and I discussed the upcoming parable and the previous week's encounter with my class, including their examples. My favorite offering was the song by Michelle Schacht, return of the prodigal daughter. A wise woman once reminded me that the first rule in teaching and preaching is to start where people are. What's in it for me is an important part of where they are. The corollary, according to UU theologian James Luther Adams, is to start where they are, but not to leave them there. Instead, it is our task to lead one another along the path of transformation, one step, one person at a time. Transformation is the mission of our faith, calling us into interdependence, into service, and into our better selves. We do not witness to our faith by what we say, we believe, but rather by how we live our lives. So that question, what's in it for me, is actually a reasonable response. But the best possible answer to offer is probably not personal transformation. The question reflects the tension between individual and society and the particularly strong hold that individualism has on our own faith tradition. So it seems like a bit of an oxymoron to appeal to people's self-interest as a way to coax them to become builders and sustainers of community and be transformed and enriched in the process. They may be a little more responsive if you frame your response to the question, what's in it for me, in terms of the person's gifts and talents and interests and how using them might mesh with the needs of the community. I find that offering the right answer to this question is very important and valuable in asking people for any of their time and money. The right answer will suggest how working on a habitat house, leading a covenant group, serving on the board, or any other contribution to their congregation, their favorite nonprofit, or any other community will enrich their lives. Yet we continue to rely on the soft sell of promising minimal demands rather than the mutual benefits, both personal and community. John Kennedy, in his, or at least his speechwriter, had it half right. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Let's rewrite it to ask what your congregation can do for you or is doing for you, and what you can do for your community, and how the two are interconnected. Now, there are a lot of things I am not good at. Most of them are physical. I'm a lousy swimmer, an adequate singer, a somewhat better but still not very good dancer after 22 years of jazzercise. In fact, the original sermon I had planned for today was about confronting one's limitations, but I think that I'll save for another day. But today, I want to concentrate instead on one of my useful skills. I'm skilled at recruiting. I didn't know that. It just happened. It's convincing people not just that it's more blessed to give than to receive, but that giving is an important pathway to receiving, and also that they have some special gifts to offer. Matching gifts to niches is kind of like running a dating site for volunteers. I first discovered that skill back in the early 1980s when I was chair of the nominating committee for the local League of Women Voters, which I was the founding mother of, and we were struggling to find a new president. So I identified 6 candidates who didn't know they were candidates. I invited them to my house for, of course, wine, to discuss the search for a possible president. One by one, they said, I don't think I can do president, but I would be glad to do voter service, treasurer, program planning, membership. Finally, it got to Linda, who said, well, with that kind of board, I guess I can be president. She was a great president. Over the intervening years, I've had a lot of opportunities to put that skill to good use. In January 2020, I rejoined my congregation's board after a 4-year absence. One of my duties was, as president-elect, was to chair the nominating committee. I went to work and managed to fill most of the extensive vacancies in leadership left by conflict with our soon-to-be departing minister. A few years back, I was asked to be a treasurer of my homeowners association. I was an okay treasurer, but I frankly found it rather dull. When my 2-year term was about to expire, the nominating committee asked my friend Sandy to be the next president, assuming that I would be willing to serve 2 more years as treasurer. Sandy said no, but if Holly will be president, I will be treasurer. I had been president of at least 9 organizations, and she had an equal track record as treasurer because she was a retired business manager of an all-female real estate firm. My round peg was reassigned to a round hole, and she fit her square just very comfortably in the square hole I left behind. A near miss in my congregation occurred when a previous nominating committee invited a small businessman to become president elect. He said no. That ended the conversation. It was only when he told a friend who got word back to the nominating committee that he was patiently waiting to be asked to chair the finance council that we got him where he needed to be. So always say, if not that, then what? One of our current board members is chair of the Council of Committees. The Council of Committees is a piece of our governance structure that's languished for most of its 14 years of existence, with maybe one exception in the distant past. It needs to be redesigned. Susie is young and energetic and a great board member, but it was not the slot for her. Her skills, her interest, her passion is communications. And there's a communications committee on the organizational chart that's been dormant for several years. So we needed to figure out a way for her to use those skills for the fellowship while keeping her engaged. It took a small village to figure that one out. Susie's the mother of young children, slowly pursuing a degree in graphic communications at Clemson. We need tech support and better ways of communicating, a lesson we learned from the pandemic. Together, we have worked out a way for Susie to answer the question of what's in it for me. We will be hosting her required internship for her degree while she reworks our communications infrastructure and trains people in the necessary skills. She will resign from the board at the end of December, but will continue to attend meetings with voice but not vote because the minister is her intern supervisor and the board is her advisory board. And I will rework my upcoming third year to take over the Council of Committees, which is a task dear to my heart because it uses my recruiting and encouraging kinds of skills. Dan Hotchkiss, in his book, Governance and Ministry, says that organized religion is something of an oxymoron. Religion calls us from life as it is to life as it should be, whereas organizations are focused on preserving what there is right now and keeping the ship afloat. Organizations usually have enough visionaries and enthusiasts like me, but they also need people who are good at detail and who enjoy work that requires a narrower focus and greater depth. The personality types attracted to Unitarian Universalism tend to be strong on the big picture creative skills as well as the analytical rational ones, but they're sometimes a little short on detail and caregiving. We have more potential presidents than treasurers. That shortage of detail people makes it even more important to, in military language, identify and deploy those talents as well as develop those skills in doing the work of congregational life. People join congregations because they think they know what's in it for them. A community of mutual support, a place that challenges and affirms and supports their search for truth and meaning. Most of them do not join, as our late minister Cynthia Prescott used to say, in order to serve on a committee. But as they transition from visitor to member, or as from being members who've been busy raising children and working at a job to empty nests and retirement, we need to offer some satisfying opportunities to use those gifts they were born with or have developed over the course of their lives. We need to make it clear that in a network of mutuality, what's in it for them is also what's in it for the rest of us. UUs are very fond of the word community. Its Latin meaning is literally build together. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the chief rabbi of the United Kingdom, has written a wonderful book called The House We Build Together. In that book, he focuses on how a nation can build community out of diversity. People who come from different places, practice different religions, pursue different goals, and bring different gifts. He personally insists that he is both totally Jewish and totally British. It is in the day-to-day working together that families and congregations and other communities learning to love, to give, to share, and to feel grounded, supported, affirmed, and challenged. So we UUs claim to be proud of our diversity, but what we usually mean by that is theological diversity. There are other kinds of diversity: age, sexual orientation, color, race, culture, income, ability or disability. Too often we fall back on the organized part of religion in our faith communities by seeking out others who are more like us than otherwise. We fail to see the strength that a broader measure of diversity would bring to our shared, responsible search for truth and meaning, social justice and democracy, inclusivity, and openness to change, all of which are part of our principles. Most of you have been UU long enough to know about the elevator speech, which is how you explain what we are as a faith tradition. You know, you're wearing a t-shirt that has some UU symbol on it, and you get on an elevator, and you got about 7 floors to go, and somebody says, UU, what's that? And so you have to pare it down to about a 25-word elevator speech. But once people are settled into the congregation, it's not time for a second elevator speech. It's time for a train speech. Trains move more slowly and have longer breaks between stops. So that mock conversation might begin by gently suggesting that this person has some gifts that would be appreciated and valued in the congregation. And your friend comes back with that awful question, what's in it for me? It's a tough one. Well, like your elevator witness, your train talk should probably start from the heart and say, well, this is what's been in it for me. This is what it's done for me to enrich my life and expand my horizons and engage me in the work of building community, both within and beyond the congregation. And then turn the tables. Say, what kinds of things do you gravitate into in groups? What role have you played in other volunteer organizations? What do you like to do? How might this community enrich your life even as you enrich the community? We've been trained from childhood to experience life as a series of multiple choice tests. So maybe the best way to help someone discern what they might be willing to do is to offer a menu of options. My daughter had little time to give to the congregation when they asked her to serve as treasurer, but she agreed to the audit committee. Or Bing, whom I mentioned earlier, who turned down president-elect because he was waiting for someone to ask him to serve as the congregational financial officer. So I'm a recruiter. What's in it for me? Here's my train speech. I enjoy being part of a faith community that challenges and affirms me, that makes me feel connected and valued. I want that congregation to survive and thrive and be there for my grandchildren's generation. Like the little drummer boy, my question is, what can I give? Money, time, and skills. I have a number of skills, but my particular favorite skill, other than preaching and teaching, is recruiting. I don't ask yes or no questions. I explore with a person what he or she enjoys doing, is skilled at, and where those congregations might fit into the congregation's needs. So when someone asks you to do someone, or you are charged with asking someone else, the question, what's in it for me, is always present, spoken or not. As an evangelist for your faith community, be prepared to offer your personal answer and invite them to do the same. It will enrich you both and your faith community. Amen and blessed be. And our final hymn, is that right? Final hymn is next, and it is one you probably all know, This Little Light of Mine. If you have a hymnal, it is here somewhere. Marge, what's the number? Oh, here, it's number 118.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, say shalom, Bimram. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom, Bimram. Oh, say shalom. Oh, say shalom, Bimram. Oh, say shalom. V'yakol Yisrael
Okay. If we can get the full screen, I'll do the benediction. As you go forth from this place, be mindful of how community enriches your
Okay,
life.
Holly?
Yeah? Yes? Okay. Can you hear me?
Would you be willing to entertain a few comments or questions before we move on to the benediction?
Oh yeah, I thought you wanted that after, but this time this would be fine. Let's yeah. Anybody that wants to comment or ask a question or complain or tell a story. I love stories.
We could do that after the joys and concerns if you want to stay around for the general conversation, or you could do it now.
Let's do it now because it's pretty early.
Okay, anybody on Zoom, just feel free to unmute yourself.
Do gallery so I can see everybody. Okay, good.
Again, anybody on Zoom that has any questions or comments for Holly regarding her talk
Okay.
today, please unmute yourself.
Dom? Dom had his hand
Yeah,
up.
I enjoyed that very much. I found it inspiring, and I hope Tom was paying attention as our nominating chair. You're giving us a lot of hope, and we're wondering, will you her out?
Okay. Tom, did you want to respond? Oh, okay. Anyone else?
I
Anybody have
have a comment.
Okay. Bonnie?
I do.
Bonnie?
Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes.
Um, well, okay. Can you, okay? Okay. Well, Holly, to put that together for me. A little piece of feedback is you speak and read a little fast for me. So I have to kind of work at it. The main message that I really get is that all my life I was taught not to be selfish. Don't ever ask what's in it for you, that kind of thing. And what you brought to light for me is that meaning that I have been putting on it all my life is really not appropriate. It has a much more positive meaning because we all really act out of our self-interest to some extent at least. And how wonderful when it's a combination of self and for the greater community and doing good. It's like a triple whammy. So you've really helped me a lot with just changing my whole mindset and realizing that it's not that we need people, it's what about us can grow and develop and nurture people that do join our community. Anyway, thank you. I really appreciate the message.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I think people feel resentful when they have to give time to things that they really either are not good at or don't enjoy doing. And I think there's enough different ways to participate in community that you can find one that works for you. But I was just intrigued at the two different professors at different times asked that question, and I thought, oh, okay, what do you want? And it wound up being much more meaningful for them and for me. So I wonder if anybody has a story of how they got persuaded to participate, because I know there's lots of folks in here that are actively engaged in their congregation. So who got you started? Who said the magic words that they want to say, yeah, I think that's something I'd like to do? Anybody? Or I mean, I'm not saying that's the only question, but that's one question that you could answer.
I'm going to say nobody. We participate in lots of things, but the first thing we did was we asked about the hospitality committee. How could we do that? And then we went from there, and we kept asking ourselves, where could we serve? What could we do? So,
People are like that. People like that are wonderful. It makes the job of getting things staffed home much easier. But unfortunately, not everybody does that. They wait to be asked. It's like volunteering. It's one of those things like not being selfish. It's not putting yourself forward, and that's a mistake. You should be willing to offer. And say this is a skill that I have, and I would be happy to use it for the congregation. And I encounter both types of people, and I know they're just speaking from their personality type, but Brenda, if there was more people like you that said, yeah, this is something I'd like to do, that would be terrific. In the meantime, we have to work a little on the recruiting side as well.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
I think
oops, sorry, Laura. Let me just jump in there. This Annette, Dan Teslow actually asked me, and he did it in the typical Dan Teslow way. Basically, he was like, "All right, you look like a big ham." And he wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't really saying I'm a big porker, but he has somehow recognized that I have the ability to act.
Yeah.
And we kind of went down that road a little bit, but really the way that he said that and his way to try to rope me into the whole thing was it really kind of showed me what can be my own path here with the fellowship. Doing art things and applying my skills in theater in whatever way that I can. The other person who tried her ding dang darnest to rope me in to some actual work, and bless her heart, I'm so glad that she did, because I got to meet Henry on his first day at our fellowship. Jill Ellern, come on down. She grabbed me by the shoulder. She said, "You look like you can be a wrangler, a greeter wrangler." So she was trying to put me in a little bit too much in charge, but I appreciate it anyway.
Presidents do that. Part of their job.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Who else wants? Laura. Unmute. Yeah, maybe I can unmute you. That's fine.
Mute?
Okay, there you go. Okay, you're waiting. You muted back again. You can get. Let's see if I can, Laura. No, I can't find.
You're muted, Larry.
You're muted, Laura.
Yeah, she's the only one that can unmute herself. Laura, please unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay.
But it's okay. I'm sorry, I was going backwards. Dan Teslow asked me to be the chair of the caring committee, which I thought would be okay, but it wasn't good because I didn't know anything about Franklin. I still don't, but I don't know where y'all live, and I couldn't put a face to anything, and I was like a fish out of water trying to do the caring committee. But then when I was asked to do hospitality, that was fun, although it was demanding.
Yeah, exactly. It's finding that I love that story about Sandy the treasurer and Holly the president, and when you
Yeah,
reverse
that's
the
a
roles,
good
it
one.
doesn't work as well.
Well, what do we do now with COVID as far as really being sincere about contacting people and face-to-face and that interaction? We can't do that now.
No, it's a lot harder. It's a whole lot easier to ask somebody face to face rather than by email or over the telephone. I usually try to forewarn people. I send them an email and say, I'd like to invite you to participate in congregational life, and I've got some options. Would you give some thought to what you might be interested in doing, and then I'll call you and we'll talk about it. That's it's not as effective as inviting 6 people to my living room for wine, but it's a good. I find that warning people and letting them think about it ahead of time Now they may talk themselves out of it, but they might actually start thinking about what there is at the fellowship that they would be good at and would like to do. And that's really what gets them more deeply into membership. I mean, that's part of the transformational process. So it's not just good organizational strategy, it's good theology as well. Mary, you keep nodding. You must have something to say. Nope, you're muted.
It's fun to hear about Dan asking people to do different things, and Jill's certainly right that presidents end up asking a lot. But we can also encourage each other. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the formal people. I think some of the things that I got involved in was because someone just said, would you, come join me in this activity? And that was a wonderful bridge into doing more.
Okay. All right. Any last thoughts before? Let's see where we are on the order of service.
Go ahead, Dawn. Go right ahead, Dawn.
Don.
I think the biggest volunteer commitment I ever made was when our first son was of scouting age, and he started participating in the scouting program, and I, as an adult, helped out. And then the scoutmaster left. So there was a void. And I stepped in as scoutmaster because I really like the program. I enjoy scouting, and it was something to do with my son.
Yeah.
But I think the main impetus was the void, that there was nobody else there to fill the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a major part of volunteering, is that you see an organization that is running smoothly and you don't see any place for yourself until somebody nudges you and makes room and invites you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like when Bonnie stepped down from running Echo Forum.
Yeah, I guess that's how we got into the fellowship.
Yeah, I was
is
thinking about that.
We really, uh-huh.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing to just think about. I have slots to fill, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of creating a team of people that enjoy working together and do good work as a result. So, anybody else before? Yes.
I think it's so worthwhile too. That's the thing. It was worthwhile to continue Eco Forum, and so much of what we're trying to do here is so worthwhile.
Yeah, that is a great project. Every time I read your weekly little newsletter, so I know that you're really active. And our Green Sanctuary has been dormant during all of this transition we've been going through between the COVID and our settled minister leaving and getting an interim minister. It's been complicated, but I'm hoping that next year I can work on rebuilding the sanctuary. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I will try to talk more slowly. I remind myself of that every time I start a sermon, and then I kind of get on the train and it picks up speed. And I wish there was a way of signaling me to slow down, wave your hand at me or something like that. Okay. If there's any last thoughts before, okay, I go to benediction. I will give you a slow benediction. How's that? As you go forth from
I
this
have a
place.
comment. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
go ahead. Yeah.
Anybody hear me? Warren,
Yeah.
do they hear me?
Yes. Can you not hear us?
Well, now we can't hear you, Marge. We were hearing you, but now we're not.
So maybe switching to all the Zoom people loses the service leader. I don't know. Marge, are you muted somehow?
No, actually, they control the volume. Everybody controls their own volume.
Because I want to make a difference, and it comes from the heart. And if there's no appreciation, you know, the feeling is from me, what I have done to give me satisfaction. Well, the person I was talking to said she didn't agree with me, but that's okay. What I guess my point is that I think that when we do the things we do, if we do them from the heart, because we want to make a difference, that is enough. You know, because I don't think anybody is ever going to get appreciated as nuts as they think they ought to be. But I think that if they make a difference and they feel that they've made a difference, that's the important thing. That's all I want to say.
Yes. I preached a sermon years ago on doing it for the applause. Yeah, I think we do need to appreciate people and to thank them for the work they do. That's not, hopefully that's not their primary motivation. The motivation is to support the community and use their gifts and do meaningful work, all three of those. Okay, as you go forth from this place, be mindful of how community enriches your life and how you can in turn enrich the life of this and other communities that form your personal network of mutuality, family, neighbors, colleagues. Loosen the boundaries that separate and strengthen the links that bind you to one another in community. Take the light with you, carry the light, share the light, be the light. Amen.